longevity. And this can be multifaceted. This is something that, for some, what they're going to see this as is whether or not the act of competing in bodybuilding has a negative impact on their overall health. Now, if this is the case, this is something we can trace back and confirm with lab work that, hey, being in the sport or getting to this body fat or being this lean for this long has detrimental effects. Now, under this umbrella, we can talk about specific system disorders. Yes, we can talk about enhanced athletes using oral anabolics or using things that are hepatotoxic. But globally, what we have to understand is that even for the unassisted athletes, even for athletes who are natural, there is going to be some degree of impact on hormone balance. Now, more specifically, this is going to affect their ability to ovulate. And sure, there are some people who pretty much go unscathed despite being in the sport for a long period of time, being very lean for a long period of time. Yet, what we have to understand is that majority of people who compete, there is going to be some degree of impact on their hormonal state. And if that's the case, okay, this can be a risk that maybe you've decided is acceptable for the time being, but I think it's important to understand the risk relative to longevity, specifically to family planning. So if you're someone who already knows, hey, like early on, I do want to have a family and this is going to be something that I'm going to want to begin trying for in the next couple of years. This needs to be a weighed consideration when you're deciding how lean you're going to get, how long you're going to stay that lean, how long your prep is going to go, and the frequency in which you're going to compete. Not to mention whether or not you're going to use PEDs. Now, yes, there are ways to go about using PEDs that are sound and that have minimal implications on fertility long term, yet we have to consider that aside from PEDs, the state of contest prep, that in itself can be very costly. That in itself can have a very large impact on your fertility, which I don't think is something that a lot of people realize. A lot of people attribute infertility or difficulty with family planning later on to just simply having used PEDs for some amount or some duration. What we have to understand is that without that ovulatory cycle, there is no way to know or guarantee that several periods of anovulation won't have some degree of an impact on your ability to have kids down the line. So if the cost of competing means that you are skipping 3, 4, 5, 6 periods in a year's time frame, and you have a very significant latency in getting that ovulatory cycle back, this needs to be something you consider, especially if you do have high aspirations to compete in the sport as a professional.